Welcome, everybody. Hopefully you're all starting to recover now after a coffee break. Yeah, as James mentioned, got a bit of an odd background, mix of stuff, but kind of when he gave us such a broad topic to talk about, I kind of thought, right, well, what do I talk about if he gives me a broad topic? Well, I work with tech startups in an R&D capacity, and now I'm working in close combination with a craft beer. So I thought I'd look at kind of when and whether to consider scalability, and then the idea in terms of sort of the tweet that we had to do would be, to summarize it, would be that while the basic notion is intuitive, scalability actually has no generally accepted definition. So how and when then to kind of consider scalability, particularly in a world of minimum viable products? You know, you're all very familiar with that, so where does that come in tech and beer? So I'm going to propose, kind of preach the choir here, converted here, but you don't consider scale until you have a quality MVP. I think most people will agree on that. Just get on, do your MVP, get your quality, then worry about your scaling. But I think, you know, from talking to people and from my own experience, that it's good to know the key elements that will be relevant to scaling your craft as you build. So you might not worry about them, you won't spend any time actually optimizing for it, but it's good to have an awareness of it as you go through. And then actually, tech, beer, there are some really key shared elements for scalability between particularly, you know, obviously craft tech and beer. So really quickly, just why not to consider scalability during your MVP development? Again, preaching converted here, most of you, but you waste precious time and resources on non-critical tasks. Your product might never see the light of day, particularly in tech where you really iterate really, really quickly, coming up with new ideas all the time. It's just not worth it. In doing some research for the talk, I actually hadn't come across this guy before, but really impressive what he did. More of you probably know him than me, but computer scientist called Donald Knuth, who had a huge impact on kind of the tech world, and he said that premature optimization is the root of all evil, talking about sort of non-critical elements, the amount of time that people spend looking at those. So I thought that was a really nice kind of way of summing up. So moving forward, assuming that you're not going to look at the scalability at all, I'm going to say what are the key shared elements for scalability of craft tech and beer. Architecture, you can see down here we've got Old Street, and this is the brewery. So it's based in an old castle for reasons that I'll get onto later. That gives a real plus. Also some negatives, but it's based in this old castle, Zatech Castle, north of Prague, about 45 minutes in the famous kind of Sass hops growing region. So location and then ingredients, and I'll be comparing kind of Old Street and the brewery because obviously again it's what I know. So why go away from that as we move through? So the first one, architecture, tech architecture and scalability. All developers know it's important. It's not really, there's nothing special there to know that's important. I think the main point there is that it's even easier now to ignore it until you're post MVP. You know, you just play rack space. Before you couldn't even get server plans. They'd fix you on one server plan. Now it's just, you know, you can be completely flexible with it. There's so many more databases and languages and open source. You will be able to solve the sort of system architecture, and then the physical issue of having servers in your back room is just not an issue anymore. Beer architecture, craft beer, you can ignore it, but definitely not as easily as tech products. You much more have to consider kind of the cost to build your facilities, because again, it's very physical, or the current availability of spaces. So Celia was an interesting one because the brewery existed. They brew a number of other Zatech beers there. And then they were working with the Brewing Research Institute to specifically solve the problem of coming up with a gluten-free craft beer. You know, gluten's a sticky protein, takes a lot of work around how to remove that without damaging the taste and keeping the quality in there when you've got just 3 core ingredients. So they kind of knew that once they solved that with the Brewing Research Institute, they would then brew it in, for various reasons to do with ingredients and stuff I'll get onto, they would brew it in the castle. So they kind of knew the architecture existed. They knew that would do what they'd be working with. That has benefits, but the flip side to that is actually, you know immediately, although you can scale it, you've got an upper cap, which in this case is 135,000 hectoliters. Back in 2002, the brewery was kind of run down. Rolf Munding, who's involved with a couple of breweries over here, he basically completely redid all of the architecture inside, new equipment, state-of-the-art whirlpool and silica filtration systems, built it for scale. So at the moment, it's only actually using 35,000 of its 135,000 hectoliters. So you know that you can scale, and obviously there are processes that need to be done for that. But you have your limit, whereas obviously with tech, there really is no limit. So kind of a key difference there. Looking at ingredients, in both cases, quality is the absolute key to producing a fantastic craft product. But the thing is, availability and cost still play a role, both in tech and beer. And I'd say the most key in both is your staff. You know, I mean, certainly in tech, you guys will agree. Your staff is what makes it happen. You know, talking about Twitter and, you know, going out to where, you know, looking at who's contributing to open source, get people that share your culture, share that passion is absolutely crucial. Although availability and cost matter, you know, so Old Street's great, Silicon Valley's great, Berlin's great because you get, you know, all of those staff around that you can, you rely on, and then when there's lots of them there, the cost hopefully comes down a bit. You can get around in the tech world. I don't know if you guys have come across, well, obviously you know WordPress, but I mean in terms of their model, so they don't have a head office. They just, well, I found this out the other day, I thought it was really cool. Don't have a head office, 150 people around the world. If you want to work for them, they never put jobs out there. You have to contact them, say why you'd want to work with them. They give you basically kind of an internship for 3 months. If you get to grips quickly with the way they're working and their culture, then they'll hire you. But basically, you have to be able to prove yourself that you can work from anywhere in their stuff. So, you know, really kind of, for tech, you can get the ingredients no matter where you are, what you need to do, which is why you would just focus on your MVP. For Celia, it was a little bit different. It was something they had to consider in developing the craft. There's 2 key staff in particular that would be hard to replace. They would be replaceable, but they're key to the scaling in terms of knowing the quality and having the history there. So one is the craft mistress, who's been at the brewery for 20 years. I find it interesting that apparently we're one of the only breweries that has, well, the only brewery that has a craft mistress rather than a craft master. And actually, again, doing research, I found out that clay tablets show that 4,000 years ago, brewing was a respected profession, and all the master brewers were women. In 2005 BC in Babylon, the brewers were also women, and they were referred to as priestesses. And then in the medieval ages, the monks kind of came on, and when the monks sort of stopped brewing, the brewing moved into the home. Then, so yeah, and then the Soviet brewmaster Thomas Lazek, who basically redid all the architecture, was key to kind of coming up with what we'll get onto a bit controversial subject, but the patent that Celia has around deglutinisation. Those 2 people and the combination of their expertise and their local knowledge of the market are really key to kind of being able to scale the craft. If you look at this picture here, this is the maturation tanks, 59 days to brew Celia. Vulcanized rubber used in here instead of stainless steel because it's less inert to the taste, so it produced a better taste. But there's no automation. Most breweries now in the world use C2K sort of filtration tanks, fermentation tanks. Here we just openly ferment it, and the craft mistress will go constantly, very regularly, and literally on those pipes there we'll be adjusting the temperature. She'll be checking the temperature manually every hour, and you know, so that kind of puts a limit on your scalability, and it's her expertise that is so crucial to being able to produce big batches. Again, other tech ingredients can be obtained anywhere for scalability, mostly hardware and money. I mean, hardware is, you can get it anywhere, get it shipped anywhere. It's getting smaller and more portable. Money is more ethereal than ever. Okay, you get VCs that like to huddle together in their nice cities, you know, but for the most part, money can kind of be gotten anywhere. Again, physical ingredients for beer, you can get most of them anywhere. You could financially viably take the hops and malt, you know, sort of Sass hops, which is grown in the region around Zatech, are crucial. They have a spicy, clean bitterness. We're the only brewery in the world to use 100% Sass hops. Everybody else sends them to, you know, US and Japanese beers use Sass hops, but they cut them with other hops because they're too expensive to use commercially. So we have that advantage. So if you ship them, it would be more difficult to do that. Local Moravian malt, kind of the combination of the 2 is crucial. Water, on the other hand, you really couldn't feasibly move that. So you really couldn't scale this craft beer anywhere else, because as soon as you change the water, you're going to change the product. So, you know, it'll still be Celia, you can still brand it, but it's not that absolute classic product that they worked really, really hard to develop. Think Guinness in Africa, if anybody's had Guinness in Africa. It just doesn't taste the same. You can send ingredients over there, but they're not sending water from Dublin. So, you know, that's really where the problem comes in. So kind of this limitation to beer, scalability, tech manages to avoid that. Location, again, you know, we're talking about beer, it's kind of a pinch point. For tech, it's kind of the local ecosystem offering of expertise and learning work has a great thing, but again, WordPress shows that doesn't really need to be there. For Celia, you know, the local Hop Institute is there. It's the world's largest warehouse of hops. Huge expertise there. They've got the world's smallest brewery, which is experimental. They also have the Research Institute of Brewing and Malting in Prague, which helped come up with the patent for Celia. So, you know, that local ecosystem is crucial, but I'd say it's more sort of the physical ingredients that are really, really crucial. And, you know, you kind of get the physical environment again. You've got the castle walls. The fact that it's in these castle walls gives amazing temperature control, which is crucial to the quality of the beer. Easy to clean, which when you're talking gluten-free is really, really crucial, because you have to clean the whole system before you can do it if you want to get the certification. For tech, not very important. Old Street had a benefit, cheap rents and cool warehouse conversions, but that dissipated pretty quickly once everybody started moving up, and now it's completely the opposite. And then also we have the local climate in soil, which is perfect for the SAS hops, but again, you could send those elsewhere, but kind of the soil's rich in ferrous oxide, which retains water. So, I mean, to summarize, I guess it's kind of, so what would you take away from this? In tech, just build a great MVP, scaling will always be possible. Grab your staff and your money from the cloud, host it in a desert in Nevada, re-engineer your architecture, and, you know, ship your hardware. You're going to be able to do it. For beer, you know, if you have the money and money's no object, you'll be able to scale, you'll be able to make everything work. But I think it's a real boon to be able to think about those elements in advance. Now, the final discussion point that I wouldn't want to leave, because as James mentioned, it's how we kind of got here, and hopefully it'll come up in the panel a bit. I know James is a passionate believer, and actually I share his belief that with software, patents are given away far too easily. You shouldn't actually be able to have the patents. That's before you even get into the US backlog and all the impact it has on innovation and, you know, patent trolls and everything. We do have a patent. It took a long time to come up with the enzyme. It kind of covers the way in which the enzyme is done. And again, the temperature control that the castle walls give is crucial to that. But the point is, they're irrelevant to scaling your craft. Just an interesting point. So there we go.
Great.
That's everything.
Thank you very much, Nick.
No problem at all.